Hey, Shalom Mark, and this is Rakam Akapash from GMS. Lord, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem Chakwadash. Want to give double honors unto the elders, the apostles of GMS, and Shalom out there to the hopeful that's pushing the truth in all sincerity. Back here in another video. I'm a little behind in some of the videos I wanted to make, and this was one of them, right? Going into Esau's perception of the world, right? Because Esau likes to, push democracy like he's some righteous leader of the free world, and everyone has the right to choose and that kind of stuff, right? But but you'll notice that it's only when it suits him does he supposedly believe in democracy, right? Because the British public and these publics in the Western world, right, they believe in democracy, right? They believe democracy works. They believe they have the right to choose their leaders and choose actions and all these different types of things. They feel included, supposedly, right? Now, not everybody operates on democracy in the world. Right? Everyone's got different regimes and that, but he's all meant to believe in democracy, like choice, right? You're meant to choice. You're meant to have a choice, even though it's BS. Because we know at least they don't deal with choice, right? But the people believe in this supposed choice that we have, right? But when it comes to matters that don't fit their narratives and stuff like that, apparently the rest of the people's opinions don't matter, right? And George Galloway here, as you see at the top here with the hat, he might be even be a Jake, right? He's a Scottish dude here, but ex-politician or whatever. And you got Piers Morgan here, which probably most people know. I've seen on their TV at some point. Chat show host, right? A debater, he's one of the debaters, right? But yeah, I want to play this video because it's Esau is delusional, right? He's P on Edomites are delusional, that they believe that they're supported and that their opinions matter more than everybody else's, even though these are supposedly the people that believe in democracy where everyone's opinion is supposed to matter, right? But yeah, Esau's delusional. He really thinks that they're righteous. All right, but let me play this anyway. We'll get some scriptures. All right, fair use, fair use. Here we go.
Iran is presently the hero of the vast majority of people in the world.
Oh, rubbish.
And it's
Absolute
the fact
rubbish.
That you can't see
what a
that.
load of absolute
Pierce,
nonsense.
Take your eyes off the posterior
Absolute
of the
nonsense.
tiny part of the
Nonsense.
world, which is the Western world.
George Galloway tears apart Piers Morgan's take on Iran, exposing Western hypocrisy and showing who really speaks for the world.
You think that
Africa
currently
is with
most
Iran.
of the world, you think the rest
Latin
of the world
America is with Iran.
You think the rest of the world
China is with Iran.
Yeah,
Russia is with Iran.
Russia,
All the
China,
Arabs are with Iran.
Russia, China,
Take
any
your
other
nose out of the ass
North Korea?
of the tiny number of people that you think are the world. They're not the world. The world is 8 billion people.
Right. Yeah, so Esau, you're not the majority in the planet. You know what I mean? You're not the majority. You don't have the weight of the world, the voice of the world, right? Esau and their kingdoms, right, is just a small part of the entire population of the planet. And yet, when these guys speak, they expect like everyone has to bow down to what they're saying, right? Any narrative that they push, that everyone should be behind, right? So if the majority of people on the planet are against them, apparently, all of a sudden these voices, in these democracies that they create are no longer valid, right? Because, we're Edomites. Basically, we're white. And we know what's right, So therefore, that's what that's what it is. But they truly believe that their voice is louder than everybody else's. So we've always known democracy is BS anyway. But these guys that are meant to be upholding it, it changes very quickly when narratives are not being kind of kept to or gone along with. All of a sudden the rest of everybody else don't matter. Now George Galloway, he just mentioned all these continents, right? All these different countries or whatever, right? That have masses of people in them, right? Which make Esau and make Esau look really small, because Esau is small. Ultimately, yeah, he rules the empire right now, right? But he does make up a small fraction of the world population, right? And the truth is, a lot of these nations, if not most of these nations, are not with what was going down in Iran, okay, or even what these Israelis are doing, right? The whole world is really turning against them, and what they're doing, in Gaza and Lebanon, and just what they're doing in general, because they're mad, isn't it? But they're not, these nations, which are huge nations, right, with lots of people, right, are not backing what the West is doing, and that's just the truth. No one likes what they're doing right now. It's the truth, right? They might not necessarily like Iran necessarily like that, but like what you guys doing is clearly wicked, right? It's clearly wicked. Trump's clearly lost his mind. You know what I'm saying? And all these different types of things. And so Iran, it looks like the victims. And so you know what it is. People root for the underdog, innit? You know. But yeah, George is making a great point, right? But listen to what Pierce says afterwards.
You're speaking for the little clique that leads a tiny fraction of fewer than 1 billion of the people of the world.
So just to be clear,
you simply cannot see
as I
beyond the
suggested,
end of your nose.
as I suggested, then you want to put up as a defence for Iran that they're supported by China, Russia. Did you mention North Korea?
That's a lot of people, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but are they the kind of people, in terms of their own regimes, that we should be taking as good supporters of these benevolent people
You're
in
living
Tehran?
under Keir Starmer's regime, for God's sake. You're going to blame the British for Keir Starmer? The French are living under little Macron. When did you get the right to decide that 7/8 of the world's population cannot be considered valid because you, Piers Morgan, don't like their regimes? Iran is present.
That's it, right? Who gave him the right to decide that 7 billion people's voices, as George is talking, saying, have no validity, right? It appears who believes in democracy. What gives him the right to say that, right? Or to believe that, right? Because that's like saying, here we've got a democracy. We all allowed to what they say? We're all allowed to vote, right? But if you turn around and say, oh no, but these men can't vote, because we don't like them, you know what I mean? Because they live country lives or whatever. These men can't vote, It's like, okay, so the majority of people are not allowed to get heard as long as the rest of the population is with what you're saying. They're valid. That's okay. Like I say, it just shows democracy is a BS, and Esau doesn't really believe in democracy. It's total BS, right? And that is the hypocrisy of Esau, right? What he tells you, what he tells us, what he wants us to believe is that we all have choice, and we can influence things. The truth is that's not what's going on, right? You being led falsely to believe that. Okay, why they able to change the characters in the power seat and continue on the agenda of the elites. That's what's really going on. But you feel like you had some sort of input. You feel, oh, the majority of people, we go with the majority, the majority wins, right? So the majority get the people, in the power seats, right? But what if it's not the majority of people? you don't really know, because it doesn't really matter, right? Esau's not listening to you anyway. Just like Piers is demonstrating, he doesn't want to listen to the rest of the world because they don't align with his views and opinions. But that's like everyone. Everyone's different. Everyone's got different views and opinions about things. But you're gonna say what they in a democracy that they shouldn't be able to have their views and opinions because they believe because they have these different views and opinions. Dumb, innit? but this is Esau's system. All right. But yeah, I thought it was interesting because I say Esau is just a minute, bunch of people, and he got, obviously he wants to be heard above everybody else, regardless of his own systems that he supposedly put in place. But yeah, the hypocrisy is there for everyone for everyone to see it. All right, but let's go to some scriptures. Pardon me. All right, I want to start in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5. It says, "Yea, also because he transgresseth my wine," okay, which is his philosophies, his ideologies, the way he thinks, right? He transgresseth because the way he thinks is wicked, right? So he is a proud man, right? Esau is hella proud because he has power over the earth and power over the people, and he's lying to them and he's getting away with it. He's super proud, right? He's got the power, he's got the money and the militaries and all these different types of things, right? He's running shit, right? So he's extremely proud because these peons are dumbwits, and they don't see what's going on, right? So they're extremely proud, right? So neither keepeth at home, right? And like I said, he's always involved in conflicts around the world that don't really involve him. Like I said, he used to go around conquering the earth, stealing people's resources and land and killing people and whatever, right? he doesn't chill. As much as he talks about peace, he's at war an awful lot, which is funny. And everybody else is back garden. All right, rarely like only like none of these Western nations really had to defend their home soil. Not since like World War II, and they was fighting each other. The so-called white man was fighting each other themselves, right? Yeah, these foreign nations that the Arabs and that they're not fighting. No one's attacked the nations like their nations. They're at home. No, but Esau got to go over there and bomb the shit out of you because you're a threat supposedly, right? Well, because some FF attack goes on. It's like, oh no, we need to go over there and bomb a whole country and bear innocent people. It's the same playbook over and over again. All right. Anyway, it says, neither keepeth at home who enlargeth his desire is hell and is his death, right? And cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heateth unto him all people. All right. So yeah, he gathers all these people together and yeah, you must accept democracy. But what you're really seeing is it's really a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. Because he's not doing anything based on your views and opinions or by your vote or anything. He doesn't care about your opinions. He doesn't care about the world, people's opinions, and if they think it's right or wrong. Like no one wants America to be in the Iran war. All the majority of people in America don't want that. But Trump's not listening to them. Right? He don't want to listen to them. Right? Let me grab this on that point. In Psalms 58, I'll just start from the top, right? So, do you indeed speak righteousness, O congregation? Do ye judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? So, yea, in heart ye work wickedness. Ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth, right? You're always at war, right? So, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Right? Esau has done nothing but lie to the people and gave them false beliefs and wicked doctrines, right? That's all he's done. So, their poison is like the poison of a serpent. Like I said, these false doctrines and ideologies, right? It's poisonous, right? Destroying people, these lies, right? So their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, right? They don't want to hear. All they're interested in is what they want to achieve. That's why peers don't want to accept. But what George is saying is true, right? The majority of people are not with Israel or America or doing what they're doing, right? And if we're meant to be living in a under this democracy that Esau likes to promote, then why don't we listen to all these people, right? Because apparently to him they're not valid. These people's voices are not valid. That means they were never valid. It only matters what Esau wants to do, right? So he's not going to hear. You don't want to hear none of that, right? So which will not hearken to the voice of charmer never so wisely. Yeah, George is laying it down, and Piers ain't trying to hear none of that, right? And this is why part of the reason why Esau's going to be destroyed, right? It says, break their teeth, O Most High, in their mouth, break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Lord. Let them melt away as waters which run continually, which bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows. Let them be cut in pieces, as a snail which melteth. Let every one of them pass away, like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Right, so Esau's going to get jacked up, to say the least, right? But yeah, they don't want to listen, man. They're not trying to hear people. All right. This is Micah chapter 2, verse off the top. Right, it says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. Right, so all this scheming and plotting, that's all they're concerned about, right? They've got an agenda to carry out, and that's what they're going to do, right? They're going to feed you false narratives. They're going to feed you false democracy and all these types of things, just so they can get on with things in the background and fulfill their goals. Your opinion on the matter doesn't matter. If they can get you to believe, what they're doing, then great. If they can't, you don't care. It's like, so what? These are, fringe. They don't matter, right? It says that when the morning is light, they practice it because it's in the power of their hand, right? They got all the power, right? So they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage, right? So they're in the game of oppression, right? They're not in the game of freedom, right? Because democracy is meant to be freedom, right? That's how it's sold, I remember America used to go to war. They hate our freedom. That's why they're attacking us. It's like, what kind of what weird concept is that? They hate our freedom, so they're attacking you. I've never understood that, but apparently that was the reason, right? So, because we're meant to be free, supposedly here in these Western nations, we're meant to be free because we have democracy and all these different types of things. But like I said, really, you just find out that it's really just a dictatorship, which whose face changes every 4 years or so or whatever, right? But you don't have the choices you think you do. You're just made to believe it, right? So yeah, so they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage, right? Therefore, thus said Lord Yahweh, behold, against his family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall you go haughtily, for this time is evil. Right? And the Most High got plans for Esau, man. Right? He got plans, right? Revelation 17 verse 1 says, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, right? So, getting into the oppression of it still, right? America and the beast, right? They sit upon many waters, right? Which represents nations, right? And so in this latter day, this, like I said, the system is not about freedom. This system is about oppression, right? And then, like I said, they're not willing to hear the voices of the people. They don't care about the voices of the people. They have an agenda to carry out, right? So they're going to continue doing what they're doing in Iran. Israel's going to continue doing what they're doing in Lebanon and Gaza and all these different places. They're going to continue doing that, okay, until they're destroyed, right? You're going to see that these governments of the West are tyrants. That's what it really is, right? So verse 15 breaks it down, right? It says, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, okay, which is America, are peoples, right? And multitudes and nations and tongues, right? America is an oppressive entity on the planet. Not an entity of freedom, as they would like you to believe they are, or righteous. They're not. They're hypocrites, right? They're doing the bidding of Satan, right? And everybody in the end is going to get sick and tired of them, as we're going to read on in verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, okay, which represents NATO and the EU, right? And we can see the relationship between America and the European allies, and that they are breaking apart, falling apart, right? And so the Lord is making them turn against America, right? Which is going to end in in America's destruction, right? These shall hate the whore and make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill His will, right? Because that's the guy that's running the whole show, is the Most High. Esau thinks he's in control of what's going on, but he really isn't, right? This is God hath put in their hearts to fulfill His will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth, okay, which again is America. So we will see how America is going on right now. All right. Moving to Revelation 13 and verse 11, it says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. Right. So this is what you're kind of seeing now, right? All this democracy bullshit, right? All these parties, like, yeah, we get to vote for this party or that party. If we don't agree with this man, we can vote this guy. We can go, we can change sides, and we can go from left to right, right to left. If we want change, we could do that. And it sounds, it sounds like it could work. I mean, yeah, it sounds like it could work. Just vote a new guy, and if the guy that's isn't doing the job, yeah, But you notice that every time someone else gets voted in, like, shit just gets worse. Nothing gets better. Right, it seems to go on the same track regardless of who's in power, whether or not the left or the right. It don't seem to fucking matter, right? Because it's ultimately designed like that, right? The elites have designed it like that, right? Because they control who's in the seat. It's their candidate. It's not your candidate. Oh, but I voted the guy in. Did you? Or did you get or was you convinced to vote the guy in? Is these these ballots even like accurate? You know, oh yeah, he won by a landslide, or he won by 10, 20, whatever. Did he? Can you confirm that? No, you can't confirm that. You can't confirm shit. You're just being told the results. Because that's all that matters, is the results. And they can make the results whatever the fuck they want to make them. Right? That guy won. That's it. Done. You know, and they make you feel like, oh, yeah, it was one of these open procedures that, you know, democratic and, you know, it was all fair. Right? Until someone wants to say, oh, that was not fair. And then all of a sudden, the way, you know, everyone's been voting, you know, it can't be trusted. You know, to cause an uproar. You know, they play these games. All right, but yeah, you know, it's only the elite candidates that are in the power seats, right, to continue the agendas that they were doing in the previous, you know, administration or whatever. Right, it's got nothing to do with you, the people who vote, because otherwise you'd vote for better, right? You know, no one gets what they want here. Nobody. Right? Oh yeah, Trump. I'm gonna bring the prices down. Now prices are going fucking sky high. It's like, but I thought you was running on making things cheaper for Americans. But everything that you've done is making things more expensive. Oh, the tariffs and you know what I mean? It's like, huh? It's like it's completely backwards, right? That's not what I voted for. But but a lot of you been made to believe that Trump knows what he's doing, right? 5D, 6D chess and some shit. Bro, it's hilarious, bro. Watching this shit is hilarious, bro. And people are actually still trying to support this dude. You know, it's fucking crazy. But it just shows you how dumbed down, you know, Americans are, or some Americans at least. All right, you know, there's dumb and there's like super dumb and Trump mega supporters. All right, but yeah, you know, so let's say your participation in all this doesn't really matter, right? So this is what you're seeing, right? So I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, right? It's this two-party system that we got, right? And he spake as a dragon, right? So ultimately, what's going to happen is what the dragon wants. The horns don't matter. You know, you vote for left or right, it don't matter. The dragon is going to do what the dragon is going to do, right? But you kind of missed the, you know, the fact that, you know, it's all one thing, right? And these governments are making life harder and harder, man. And like I say, when it gets to that time, you know, when the real crisis starts to hit, okay, these governments, they're not going to be you're not going to be looking democratic. Let's put it that way, right? They're going to be looking authoritarian, just like much like Trump is you know, rolling right now. All right, that's what you're going to see. A lot more ice, you know, ice type organizations, you know, being rough-handed with people, right? Because the people are going to be, you know, bent out of shape because, you know, crisis is going to hit, and so, you know, you people are going to be acting a bit wild, man. So they're going to come down with a hammer to solve the issue domestically, you know. So that's what the dragon represents. He's going to come down with severity, man. Say and do hard things, harsh things. All right. But that's really the system that we're living in. It's not, you know, about democracy and all these types of things. Right? This is Joel chapter 20, verse 5. So verse 4, knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short. Right? And like I say, Esau's coming to the end of his kingdom, and he's doing everything he can to you know, to keep hold of it. Right? That's why he's got these plans, you know, the MOTB and all these different types of things, right? You know, he's going to cause his place to crash, you know, and bring about that MLTB, and everyone to take it, right? He thinks that's the surefire way to continue his kingdom, right? But I say he's running out of time because he knows the Lord's on his way, right? And so that's why things are, you know, getting a bit chaotic right now. But it's going to get worse, right? So the triumph of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment, right? Esau is nothing but a damn hypocrite. You know, it's one rule for you and another for him. It's always been that way, right? It's always been that way. And let's say Piers Morgan's, you know, George demonstrated that with Piers. You know, Esau doesn't really believe in the democracy. They just believe in the result. They will justify anything by the result. You know? And he doesn't look at life or people with equality like he says he does, right? It's bullshit, right? It's Matthew 23 verse 28. It says, even so, he also outwardly appear righteous unto men, right? This is what Esau does. He outwardly appears righteous to men, right? He wants that image, right? So he wants to make people believe that he's making the right call. He knows what's best, and he's doing it for the good, because he is good, right? He's doing it for the good. So you should just trust him. Just trust him. No, we cannot do that, right? We cannot trust you because you are the devil, and your history, your track record shows you that you're the devil, right? We can't trust you, right? Because you've done nothing but pillage the earth, right? and create wars and shit. Like, we can't trust you, right? But you beguile these people, making people believe that you're somehow righteous, right? And that we should just go along with whatever you say, that everybody else is wrong, even if a whole bunch of people, disagrees with what you're doing, right? You Edomites, you just, like I said, you play it like you just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm doing this for the best of everybody. Yeah, I'm sure blockading and attacking Iran, that was best for everybody, right? Yeah, you're just fucking up everybody. But this is all biblical prophecy, so these things all have to happen. Like, we're not mad. We're not mad at all. Trump, do what you're doing, man. Keep doing it, because we want to see that World War III, man. Which is all this is going to inevitably cause. All right, but for the people that you're meant to be representing, right? Because you're put in office by your peeps, right? You're meant to be representing the public, and like this is not in the best interest of the public, of your of your peeps. It's just not, So again, you like to appear outwardly righteous. You got Trump putting himself up as AI Jesus. It's crazy. 4 a.m. in the morning or what the fuck it was. But bro is not sleeping good. He's something wrong with this dude, right? So yeah, so even so, you also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity, right? And that's what Esau is. Right? I know this is talking about the scribes, wicked scribes and Pharisees, man, but this is Esau. Esau, is the same way, right? It's false. It's just full of iniquity. All right. Just a couple more, right? Job 15, verse 34, right? It says, for the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and the fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery, right? So yeah, this is all short-lived, man. The joy of the hypocrite is short, right? The Most High is about to end this man's, and rain on this man's parade. He's thinking he's moving towards his NWO, infinite order. And the Most High is going to be like, nah, right? It ends tonight, right? You're going to be gone, right? You're going to be put in chains and put in slavery, bro, right? Never to see the sun again. I don't know. Maybe you be in that pit forever. I don't know. But yeah, you're going to be in slavery, man. So yeah, it's going to end in just a short while, right? In an hour, when it goes down, you're going to go from the highest to the lowest, right? Yeah, for the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and the fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery. They conceive mischief, they bring forth vanity, and their belly prepareth deceit. Right? And this is why we can't trust Esau. We don't trust Esau. Right? This is Obadiah 1. I'm gonna start from the top. It says, the vision of Obadiah. Thus said the Lord God Yahweh concerning Edom. Okay, you so-called white people, you Edomites. Right? We have heard a rumor from the Lord Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against it in battle. Right? The nations are turning on the West, right, and speaking more outwardly against them, like China, Russia. Russia's an Edomite nation anyway, but these other nations outside of Esau, they're turning on the West, right? Because they're tired. They're sick and tired of the way you've conducted yourself, right? We know it's bullshit, and that's why George is going for all these countries that they're not with America, right? They're against what they're doing. Because they recognize or see America as an oppressive force in the world, which they are, which is biblical prophecy. And so they're being turned against it, as we're reading here. Verse 2 says, this is, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. Right? Thou art greatly despised. And like George is saying, these Western nations only represent a small portion of the world's population. Yeah, right. But the world, these other nations, the rest of the world is coming against them. They're disagreeing. They don't like what you're doing. And Esau sets up all these, UN councils and international law and shit. But he doesn't listen to none of it. Esau rules the roost. His word is law, basically, right? That's why he's got vetoes and all these different types of things. Right? These other nations, small nations, don't have no vetoes. If they don't like something or they want to put a bill passed, they can't veto it. America can veto anything. They don't like it now. It's not going forward. Because they're oppressors. They're oppressors. They're bullies. So if it doesn't favor them, they're not going to be down for it. Even if the majority of people vote for it. If it's not in their interest, they're not going to go for it. They're going to shoot it down. Right. So like I said, these nations they're tired. They're tired of the bullshit and the hypocrisy. Right. And so they're rising up against you. And and I say you are greatly despised. All right. So let's say it's not surprising, or it's not hard to believe about what George Galloway was saying to Piers Morgan. But obviously to Piers it's unthinkable. As he was going on, that's ridiculous, or whatever the hell he was saying. That's ridiculous. How can people be with Iran? That's ridiculous. Well, this is the times, man. America's not righteous, so why would they be with America? Oh, but he believes America's righteous. Oh, he believes the so-called white man's righteous in Europe, but that's not the truth. That's not the truth at all. All right, the rest of these nations are sick and tired of your ass, man. Just the same as we are. We are even more sick and tired. Right? And that's why the Most High is raising up these nations against you. Right? Because of all your wickedness and all your folly. As I say, you're not the majority in the world. You don't have the you have the power, so you have to say so, but based on your rules of engagement, your democracies and shit, like you don't have the biggest voice. You're the minority in the earth. All right, so why isn't you're not listening to the majority like you teach everybody else, right? Because you don't believe in it. It's just hypocrisy, But yeah, the Most High is made you small and despised among the heathen, man. All right, but I'm gonna end it there. Lord willing, this has been edifying, and I'll catch you brothers and sisters on the next video. Until next time, I say shalom.